The rain-soaked promise. The rain fell in heavy sheets that November evening, turning the narrow road into a river of reflected light. Marcus Hayes gripped the steering wheel of his 15-year-old sedan, squinting through the downpour as his windshield wipers struggled to keep pace. In the back seat, his daughter Emma hummed softly to herself, clutching the stuffed rabbit she'd had since she was 3. "Almost home, sweetheart," Marcus called over his shoulder, his voice warm despite the exhaustion that pressed down on his shoulders like a weight. He'd just finished a double shift at the warehouse, stacking boxes and loading trucks for 12 hours straight. His back ached, his hands were raw, and all he wanted was to make Emma her favorite mac and cheese before helping her with homework. These were the small moments that made everything worthwhile, the ordinary evenings that felt like treasures when you'd lost so much. It had been 2 years since Sarah passed, 2 years of learning to braid hair from YouTube videos, of burning, breakfast and overcooking dinner, of being both mother and father to a little girl who deserved so much more than he felt he could give. But Marcus tried. Every single day, he tried. The road curved ahead, barely visible through the storm. Marcus slowed down, his headlights cutting weak paths through the darkness. That's when he saw it. A crumpled shape on the side of the road, metal twisted and smoking in the rain. "Stay in the car, Emma," Marcus said firmly, already pulling over. His heart hammered in his chest as he pushed open his door and ran toward the wreckage. The sports car, what was left of it, had struck a tree with devastating force. The front, it was accordioned inward, glass scattered across the wet pavement like scattered stars. Through the shattered driver's window, Marcus could see a young woman slumped over the steering wheel, blood trickling down her face. "Ma'am!" He yanked at the door, but it wouldn't budge. The metal had warped from the impact. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" She stirred slightly, a soft moan escaping her lips. Marcus looked back at his car, where Emma's face was pressed against the window, her eyes wide with worry. He couldn't leave this woman here. The road was deserted, and in this storm, another car might not pass for hours. His phone had no signal. These rural roads were notorious for dead zones. With strength born of desperation, Marcus braced himself against the frame and pulled. The door groaned, then gave way with a metallic shriek. The woman was young, maybe late 20s, wearing clothes that probably cost more than Marcus made in a month. But right now, she was just someone who needed help. "I've got you," he murmured, carefully checking her pulse. Strong and steady. That was good. He could see cuts on her arms and legs, blood mixing with rainwater, but nothing that looked immediately life-threatening. Gently, Marcus lifted her from the wreckage, cradling her against his chest as he carried her to his car. Emma had already scrambled into the front seat, making room in the back. Together, they laid the woman down as carefully as they could. "Is she going to be okay, Daddy?" Emma whispered, her small hand reaching out to touch the woman's. "I hope so, baby. We're going to take her to the hospital right now." Marcus drove faster than he probably should have, but carefully, mindfully. The woman drifted in and out of consciousness, murmuring words he couldn't quite make out. Emma held her hand the entire way, singing the lullaby that Sarah used to sing, a small comfort in the storm. The hospital was a blur of bright lights and urgent voices. Nurses rushed the woman away on a stretcher, while Marcus stood in the waiting room, his clothes soaked and stained with blood that wasn't his. A police officer took his statement, nodding approvingly at his actions. "You probably saved her life," the officer said, clapping Marcus on the shoulder. Most people would have just called it in and kept driving, but Marcus didn't feel like a hero. He felt tired and worried, wondering if he'd done enough, if he'd been careful enough moving her. Emma had fallen asleep in one of the plastic chairs, her head resting against his side. It was nearly midnight when a doctor finally approached. "Mr. Hayes, the woman you brought in is going to be fine. Cuts, bruises, a mild concussion, but no internal injuries. She's incredibly lucky you came along when you did." Relief washed over Marcus like a wave. "Can I see her?" Just to know she's okay." The doctor hesitated, then nodded. "Room 247. She's been asking about her rescuer." Marcus carried Emma down the quiet hallway, her head resting on his shoulder. The woman was awake, sitting up in bed with bandages on her arms and a white patch on her forehead. When she saw Marcus, her eyes filled with tears. "You saved my life," she said, her voice breaking. "Anyone would have done the same," Marcus replied, shifting Emma's weight in his arms. "No." The woman shook her head slowly. "They wouldn't have. I know that now." She paused, studying him with an intensity that made Marcus uncomfortable. "I'm Claire Mitchell." The name meant nothing to Marcus. He smiled politely. "Marcus Hayes. This is my daughter Emma." "Mr. Hayes, I need to know, is there anything I can do to thank you? Anything at all?" Marcus thought about his stack of unpaid bills at home, about Emma's shoes that were getting too small, about the leak in their apartment ceiling that the landlord kept promising to fix. But when he looked at this woman, this stranger who'd almost died on a lonely road, he felt only gratitude that he'd been there. "Just get better," he said softly. "That's thanks enough." 3 weeks passed. Marcus had almost forgotten about that rainy night. Almost, but not quite. Emma still talked about the pretty lady they'd saved, wondering if she was okay. Then on a cold Tuesday morning, there was a knock at their apartment door. Claire Mitchell stood in the hallway, no longer wearing hospital bandages. She was impeccably dressed, her blonde hair styled perfectly, but her smile was genuine and warm. "Mr. Hayes," she said, "I've been looking for you." Marcus invited her in, embarrassed by their shabby furniture and peeling wallpaper. But Claire didn't seem to notice. She sat down at their small kitchen table and pulled out an envelope. "I spent the last 3 weeks trying to figure out how to thank you properly," she began. "And I realized that the best way to honor what you did is to help you build the life you deserve, the life your daughter deserves." She pushed the envelope across the table. Inside was a check that made Marcus's hands tremble. Enough to pay off every debt, to move to a better place, to give Emma opportunities he'd only dreamed of. "I can't accept this," Marcus whispered, though his heart ached with how much he wanted to. "It's not charity," Claire said firmly. "It's gratitude and responsibility. My family owns Mitchell Industries. We can afford this. Trust me. But more importantly, you taught me something that night in the rain. You showed me what real wealth looks like, and it's not in a bank account. It's in the courage to stop and help a stranger. It's in raising a daughter who holds the hand of someone she doesn't know because she has compassion. That's worth more than anything I own." Marcus looked at Emma, who was watching with wide eyes, then back at Claire. "This is too much." "It's exactly enough," Claire replied. "Let someone help you, Marcus, the way you helped me." The rain had stopped weeks ago, but that night stayed with Marcus like a gentle echo. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness create the biggest ripples. Sometimes stopping when everyone else drives by changes everything. And sometimes in the darkest storms, we find exactly what we didn't know we were looking for: connection, hope, and the reminder that we're never truly alone on these rain-soaked roads we travel. Marcus took the envelope, and for the first time in 2 years, he allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be okay.